I am anonymous. We are not a single person. We are not bound by politics, borders, or loyalty to any flag or leader. We are a collective voice born from outrage, from memory, and from the refusal to accept lies disguised as truth. When powerful men manipulate systems to shield themselves, when justice is delayed, distorted, or denied, we speak, not for fame, not for applause, but because silence is the ally of corruption. And what happened in New York inside that deposition room was a moment Donald Trump never wanted the world to truly understand. It began with a subpoena. MAGA Republicans, loyal defenders of Donald Trump, demanded that Hillary Clinton sit for a deposition connected to the investigation surrounding Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted child sex trafficker, whose network infiltrated the highest levels of wealth and political power. Epstein was not just a criminal. He was a gateway into a hidden ecosystem of influence, protection, and exploitation. And while his victims waited for justice, the political machine surrounding Donald Trump tried to control the narrative. They expected resistance from Hillary Clinton. They expected delays, excuses, or legal maneuvering. Instead, they got something Trump himself has never shown. She agreed immediately. Hillary Clinton, former Secretary of State, former United States Senator, a woman who has spent her life under the harshest political microscope imaginable, said clearly and directly she was willing to testify. Not only willing, she wanted it public. She wanted cameras in the room. She wanted transparency. She wanted the world to see everything. She said, in essence, let the truth be seen. But MAGA Republicans refused. The same political faction that built its identity on claims of transparency suddenly insisted on secrecy. They rejected the idea of a public hearing. They demanded the deposition take place behind closed doors, hidden from journalists, hidden from cameras, hidden from the American people. That contradiction alone revealed everything. Transparency was never their goal. Control was. Still, Hillary Clinton showed up. The deposition took place in New York, her hometown. She walked into that room knowing it was hostile territory, knowing the people questioning her were not neutral investigators but political operatives, with cameras ready and narratives already written. She sat down anyway. She prepared to answer. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, the man whose name appears repeatedly in Epstein-related contexts, the man who once publicly called Epstein a terrific guy, the man who socialized in the same elite circles, did not show up. He was not there. He has never voluntarily submitted himself to questioning under oath about Epstein's network in the same open, direct way. That absence hung over the room like a shadow, and then the spectacle began. Members of Congress aligned with MAGA, including Lauren Boebert, began secretly taking photographs of Hillary Clinton during the deposition. They pulled out their phones, snapped images of her sitting there, and quietly sent those photos to right-wing media influencers like Benny Johnson. They were not searching for truth. They were harvesting content. They were turning a legal proceeding into propaganda. It was a violation of the rules. It was disrespectful. It was revealing. Hillary Clinton saw it happening. She immediately confronted them. She reminded them they were breaking their own procedures. And she made a simple request, one that exposed their true intentions instantly. She said, if you want to do this, then bring the press in. Let everyone see. Let the public witness the process. James Comer, chairman of the Oversight Committee and a staunch Trump ally, refused. Immediately. No hesitation. No transparency. The deposition would remain secret. That decision spoke louder than any testimony. Because secrecy protects power. Transparency threatens it. Despite the circus atmosphere, despite the blatant disrespect, Hillary Clinton did something Donald Trump has spent his entire career avoiding. She answered every question, every single one. She did not plead the Fifth Amendment. She did not refuse to answer. She did not stall. She cooperated fully. Congressman Robert Garcia, the ranking Democratic member of the committee, later confirmed publicly that she answered everything in good faith. She complied completely. She did exactly what the law required.
Secretary Clinton is also completely cooperating with the deposition and the committee and is answering questions in full faith and in good faith. What is not acceptable is oversight Republicans breaking their own committee rules that they established with the Secretary and her team, which you've all reported and you've seen by releasing photos. Not acceptable, and it was gracious of the Secretary and her team to continue the deposition.
Meanwhile, the same MAGA Republicans demanding her testimony had shown little urgency in compelling testimony from figures much closer to Epstein. Howard Lutnick, a powerful financial executive connected to Epstein's network, had not been aggressively forced into a deposition. Les Wexner, Epstein's financial patron and one of his closest associates, was not treated with the same spectacle or political aggression. And outside that deposition room, the truth began leaking into the open. Bongiretsen Wallenshaw stepped forward and asked the question Trump fears most. Why has Donald Trump refused to rule out pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell? He demanded that Trump release the full Epstein files and stop hiding behind silence, because the American people deserve to know exactly what Trump is protecting.
Why is it that Donald Trump has refused to rule out the pardon, the clemency that Ghislaine Maxwell is campaigning for? We held a deposition in this committee with Ghislaine Maxwell. She used that deposition as an opportunity to campaign for a pardon. Chairman Comer then walked out before many of you and gave her talking points as to why she should get a pardon. Donald Trump needs to direct Attorney General Bondi to release all the files, to unredact the illegal redactions, and he needs to unequivocally rule out a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell, who is a monster convicted of child sex trafficking. Why has he not ruled out pardoning her? Why did the Deputy Attorney General spend hours with her, and then why was she transferred to a cushy, lower security prison? Those are important questions we should be asking about Ghislaine Maxwell. We no longer have to ask whether there's any relationship between Secretary Clinton and Ghislaine Maxwell. There was not.
Congresswoman Subramanian exposed the absurdity of the situation with brutal clarity. She said investigators were questioning the wrong person because Hillary Clinton had no meaningful connection to Epstein, while individuals who actually associated with Epstein, including people who lived near him, traveled with him, and did business with him, had not faced the same scrutiny. She demanded the release of the 2.5 million Epstein-related files so investigators could finally pursue the real truth and deliver justice to victims.
Need to get serious about this investigation. I understand now fully why Secretary Clinton wanted to make this deposition and her hearing public, because the reality is we're talking to the wrong person today. Who we should be talking to instead are people who are actually mentioned in the files, people who have made misleading statements about their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Earlier today, Chairman Comer mentioned being open to talking to Secretary Lutnick. Well, let's get him in. Let's talk to Secretary Lutnick instead. Let's talk to someone who is neighbors with Jeffrey Epstein, who actually associated with Jeffrey Epstein, not someone who had never, ever met Jeffrey Epstein to their knowledge. And so let's try to talk about people who will help us with our investigation, and let's release the 2.5 million files so we can know who else to talk to, and so we can do right by the victims and actually bring justice.
Congresswoman Rep. Summer Lee Ansari delivered one of the most disturbing revelations of all. She stated that the Department of Justice had withheld more than 50 pages of allegations involving Donald Trump made by a minor, and that the FBI had interviewed this witness 4 separate times, something that only happens when allegations are taken seriously. She called the deposition a clown show, saying Republicans were more focused on photographing Hillary Clinton than investigating the powerful figures actually connected to Epstein's criminal network.
I also want to talk about the reporting from this week and the fact that we now know that the Department of Justice, in their ongoing cover-up, the most egregious cover-up in American history, intentionally seem to have redacted more or withheld more than 50 pages of allegations from a minor against President Trump. Do not forget that Kash Patel went in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee and said under oath that the FBI had no credible allegations of any other people being involved in this child sex trafficking operation. These documents that the Department of Justice intentionally has withheld from the American public in regard to the allegations against President Trump came from the FBI. The FBI had interviewed this witness 4 times. You do not do that if it is not serious. So Kash Patel needs to be immediately brought back before the Oversight Committee. He needs to answer these questions again, and we need answers immediately. Again, America is watching. Young people in this country are watching to see if powerful people will continue to protect other powerful people and whether or not Congress will actually hold these perpetrators accountable.
Then Congressman Wesley Bell, a former prosecutor, spoke with the authority of someone who understands real criminal investigations. He said what happened inside was not a serious investigation, but political theater, driven by people chasing headlines instead of justice for victims and survivors. He confirmed that Hillary Clinton had fully cooperated and had even invited transparency, while Trump and his allies continued hiding behind secrecy.
Wesley Bell, Missouri's 1st Congressional District, and as a former prosecutor, I've been involved in leading investigations in serious offenses, and this ain't it. What we're seeing is political theater. What we're seeing is folks that are looking for headlines and tweets as opposed to doing the business of going about getting justice for the victims in this case, and survivors in this case, I should say, as well. And I think that that's what I think some of our friends on the other side are losing sight of, is that we are here to make certain that justice is served, and it's important for us, and as oversight members, to do our job to ensure that all the evidence, any information is heard, and that any victims, any survivors, voices are heard as well. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. And so what we're seeing today is we have not learned one new thing. The secretary is here. She is more than happy to have all of you come in there and into this deposition and hear her out. But there are those on the other side of the aisle who do not want that for whatever reason. And so we're going to continue to push for justice. We're going to continue to work to make certain that the victims and survivors are given their due and their voices are heard, and that justice is ultimately served.
And while the deposition remained hidden behind closed doors, independent observers were watching every movement outside. Headquarters, the independent political monitoring account known as HQ News Now, posted a message that cut through the political theater with quiet precision. They wrote, "This isn't Beetlejuice. Please follow the rules this time. It was not a joke. It was a warning." Their post showed Lauren Boebert walking through the secured hallway near the deposition site, phone in hand, surrounded by security and controlled access. Headquarters was making something unmistakably clear. This was not entertainment, not a campaign stop, not a social media opportunity. This was a legal proceeding connected to one of the most disturbing criminal networks in modern American history. And yet MAGA Republicans behaved as if the rules did not apply to them. Headquarters exposed that contrast in real time. They highlighted the difference between the seriousness of the investigation and the behavior of those treating it like a performance. Their message reflected what many observers already understood: this deposition was not being treated as a search for truth, but as a stage for political manipulation. At the same time, Midas Touch Headquarters was documenting the deeper reality behind the closed doors. Midas Touch Headquarters reported that Hillary Clinton had released a full opening statement declaring under oath that she had no knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein's criminal activities and had never flown on his plane or visited his island. They also confirmed that Hillary Clinton had requested the deposition be public, but MAGA Republicans refused, choosing secrecy over transparency. Midas Touch headquarters emphasized that despite Republican claims of seeking accountability, they had held 0 public hearings, refused media access, and failed to aggressively pursue testimony from individuals more prominently connected to Epstein's network. They made it clear that Hillary Clinton fully complied, fully cooperated, and answered questions under oath, while others, including Donald Trump, had not faced the same public scrutiny. And in that moment, 2 realities existed at the same time. Inside the room, Hillary Clinton answered every question. Outside the room, Trump's allies controlled access, controlled optics, and controlled secrecy. Headquarters and Midas Touch headquarters ensured that the public would still see the truth. Because even when power hides behind closed doors, someone is always watching. And Donald Trump, the most politically powerful figure connected socially to Epstein, remained untouched. Untouched by subpoenas, untouched by sworn questioning, untouched by accountability. Why? Because Donald Trump built his entire public identity on strength, dominance, and invulnerability. His political brand depends on the perception that he is untouchable, that rules do not apply to him, that consequences are for others. But that illusion requires protection. Protection from transparency, protection from scrutiny, protection from truth. And Hillary Clinton's deposition threatened that protection because it created contrast. She showed up. She answered questions. She did not hide. Trump did none of those things. And the deeper investigators look into Epstein's network, the more disturbing the questions surrounding Trump become. Why did Trump's Department of Justice reportedly redact dozens of pages of Epstein-related material involving allegations connected to Trump? Why did officials publicly claim there were no credible allegations, while internal investigative steps suggested otherwise? Why has Trump repeatedly avoided direct sworn testimony about his relationship with Epstein? Why has he refused to, clearly and unequivocally, reject the possibility of pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell Epstein's convicted accomplice? These questions linger because truth leaves fingerprints, and those fingerprints lead to powerful places. Hillary Clinton herself made clear in her sworn statement that she had no knowledge of Epstein's criminal activities, had never flown on his plane, never visited his island, and never knowingly associated with his crimes. She expressed horror at what Epstein did. She expressed anger for the victims. She emphasized her lifelong work fighting human trafficking and defending women and children. She also pointed to a deeply uncomfortable reality. During Trump's presidency, anti-human trafficking programs were weakened. Critical expertise was cut. Reports were delayed. Resources were reduced. At a time when victims needed strength from leadership, the system grew weaker. That contradiction raises unavoidable questions. Because leadership is not measured by words, it is measured by actions. Trump built his rise to power by convincing millions that he was their protector, that he alone would confront corruption, that he alone would challenge the system. But when confronted with scrutiny himself, Trump relied on delay, deflection, and attack. He attacked investigators. He attacked witnesses. He attacked journalists. He attacked the process itself. Because Trump understands something fundamental. Power survives on perception, and perception collapses under truth. Hillary Clinton's deposition was not just testimony. It was exposure. Exposure of the contrast between accountability and avoidance. Exposure of the contrast between cooperation and fear. Exposure of the machinery that works tirelessly to shield Donald Trump from the very scrutiny he demands of others. Because when Trump demands investigations, he calls it justice. But when Trump himself faces scrutiny, he calls it persecution. That contradiction defines him, and it defines this moment. The American public is watching. The world is watching. History is watching. Because eventually every system built on secrecy faces the same fate. Exposure. Donald Trump built his image on dominance. He convinced millions he was the strongest man in any room. But strength does not hide from questions. Strength does not fear testimony. Strength does not rely on secrecy. Strength faces truth. And Donald Trump has spent his career avoiding exactly that. Hillary Clinton walked into that deposition room and answered every question. Donald Trump did not. That is the reality no propaganda can erase. We are anonymous. We do not forget. We do not forgive corruption. We do not serve presidents. We serve truth. And truth is patient. Truth is inevitable. Truth does not care about wealth, power, or influence. Truth waits. And when it emerges, it dismantles illusions piece by piece. The illusion surrounding Donald Trump is cracking. The protection is weakening. The questions are growing louder, and the truth is getting closer. If you believe in accountability, share this message. If you believe no one is above the law, let others hear it. Because awareness is the beginning of justice. We are anonymous. We are watching, and we will never be silent.